Hello, this is the universe with your wake-up call.
All right, everybody. I'm super duper excited to have my new friend, Sarah, come and share with us today. She is a fitness and holistic coach. She does lifestyle coaching. We just connected, actually just met a couple of weeks ago at the Contact of the Cabin event with Grimerica. And from the airplane van shuttle all the way until we got to the cabin, we were just nonstop. It was amazing. I really, it was kind of surreal. I was like, wow, this person really knows their stuff, and here I am coming to like talk to people and stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. But we really talked about so much stuff and really connected, even just right off the rip. And so I want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to come and share. Welcome to the show, Blue Collar Mystics.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I feel the same way. When we got in the car, I was like, oh, thank Jesus. Like somebody here that I can actually dialogue with.
Relate to this person. Yeah. It's so cool. Well, yeah.
And actually like talk at that same level, you know?
Definitely. I knew you knew exactly what you were talking about. And that was really cool and inspiring. I'm like, there's other people out there like me who have these interests, and you could tell we were just nerding out the whole way. And, as much as we talked and as much as we had the opportunity to share and do breath work and, the cold water stuff and the hiking and all that stuff, one thing that I didn't get to learn about you yet, but I'm really excited to ask about, is how you came into the awareness of wanting to shift your life around, asking those internal questions, waking up, as they call it, for lack of a better term. But how did your awareness start to shift into yourself and spirituality and that kind of thing?
Okay. Yeah. So if you're okay with it, this is kind of like a two-part story.
Yes. Take as much time
okay?
take as much time as you need. And you sound great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because it was just, I want to make sure we're not freezing up. Okay, so this is like a two-part story. Let's start with me as a person, because that's relevant. I've always been this hyper aware, people aware, and an internal thinker, and just constantly diving into unraveling, understanding the processes of human nature in general. Ever since I was a kid. So I grew up in a family that was blended, and there's a lot of fighting. My dad leaves, my sister leaves, and I'm just this highly sensitive and empathic, intuitive girl who's just trying to figure things out, and also just serving in whatever capacity I could. So I was the family mediator. I was kind of the family counselor. As like an 8-year-old girl, I was the one counseling my parents, like, hey, this is how this works, and this person feels this way, and we should be coming together, and really trying to get people to understand each other. So unity has always been a value of mine. Unity and love. We can fast forward through my upbringing, where I went through my own traumatic experiences. Like, I had an eating disorder, just trying to cope with these things. When you're young and you've got all these big thoughts and understandings, and yet you feel displaced and misunderstood, and like there's not an outlet for that, it's confusing on how to express that energy. So it usually goes internal. And so I went through my own self-sabotaging lifestyle habits with addictions. But my awakening didn't actually happen until my adulthood. It's like, ever like look in hindsight and see the stacking of events that are just so strategically placed, and you're like, I couldn't have conjured up a better plan to get me here in the worst and best way possible. So my cataclysmic moment was, I was married for 5 years, in a narcissistic relationship. And I stayed there for 5 years because I needed whatever I was gaining there internally. And it was building me to a place where I valued so much this concept of internal freedom and like releasing these chains and really just breaking free. I have this personality trait that's just like, I do not like obstructions. I don't like anything that feels like it's holding me back internally or externally. That's freedom to me. And then identity and purpose became just way up here. I decided it was just a decision moment for me that I was done being watered down, kept under this shade. I had this fire in me that I just felt I couldn't let out. And I knew it was my choice. And I made the choice then to leave. And it was very chaotic, Owen, like that season of my life, however chaotic it felt, in a somewhat masochistic way, was one of the times I felt the most alive. And I loved it because for the first time, probably ever, I felt like I was the creator of my life. And I was the one who was fully in charge, and everything started thriving around me. I just went like from a little flicker to a massive flame, and I refused to ever go back down. Now, that wasn't the point of my awakening, though. My awakening came shortly after, when I met this person who, have you ever heard of the term twin flame?
Yes, I do know the term.
So I met what I thought was, and probably was actually, now looking back and understanding the term twin flame, and the purpose of them really is to get you to complete your healing process. It's not always because there's a romantic, outcome with that. So this person came into my life, opened up my realm of things outside of the religious structures, I guess you could say, as far as polarities, magnetization, the universe, and energy in general. And it was like super fast, big, strong connection. And then just like that, in the same way, a disconnect and separation. So through that separation, that was the hardest time for me internally and mentally, even compared to my divorce. I didn't understand how to process that using all the tools that I know. And let me tell you, leading up to this point, I have done my fair share of personal growth resources, seminars, personal development, conferences, Tony Robbins, all of it. So I had a lot of tools in my tool belt. And then, of course, my own gritty nature of being resilient and strong. Nothing was working for me. And so I was like, okay, this isn't working. I don't know how to handle this. And this is when I truly dove into meditation by myself. And this is where I tell you about the black hole. We were talking before this. Some people call the spiritual awakening, you could call it a freight train, you can call it a crash of some sort. Mine was a black hole. And it was almost like instantaneously when I made the decision to dive into that stillness space, to actually listen instead of constantly trying to run around frantically figuring things out by myself with these worldly tools. I go into meditation and I start receiving what I call them to be visions. And that was really the beginning. I feel like, oh gosh, there's so much to tell within that. That was really the beginning of me understanding the divinity inside me. I was being shown things that I feel like I shouldn't know. I shouldn't know these things. I'm seeing golden giants, like the golden era that we're approaching, coming in, detailed, very vivid imagery, myself in the imagery. And then through these series of meditations, I wrote them all down. There was physical things that happened to me, like, my physical releases that came from that I actually participated in the releasing of them myself, which I come to now know as Reiki, and Reiki to a whole nother level. I experienced astral traveling within that, freaking me the F out. I went through a long season of downloads and upgrades that sent my system through a shock. I was tingling all the time. I was sick at certain points. All the while I'm trying to run a business, trying to figure my own damn self out. And it just sent me down the rabbit hole of discovering masculinity, femininity, my own masculine, feminine nature. I was controlling weather at certain points, controlling fire at certain points, and it was crazy. But I can't say that it was turmoilic for me. I really enjoyed that time because so much was coming through so rapidly. Like I said, the black hole, I was ripping through timelines, and your audience, I'm sure, knows some of this language by now. But I was ripping through timelines and going back to even some of my Egyptian descent and understanding myself as royalty of and warrior at some points. And yeah, without going off on too many of the details of the visions, it broke me away from the religious constructs of what I was raised in to experiencing God in the actual experiential sense of that. And it caused some frayed relationships, but ultimately I'm finding that I know what's best. And we all do. But for me, it was kind of a light situation. I've heard of some really crappy, dark experiences. I fortunately did not experience many of those. It was all very light, a light as far as light versus dark.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
I went on a tangent, but
No,
I'm sure you have some follow-up.
That's what, well, yeah. And that's exactly what, the idea is, because everyone is having a different experience and there's so many different ones. I'm happy. Like we were saying a little bit before, I want to help people contextualize things, soften the blow, so to speak.
Yes.
For me, it was a train wreck or a freight train or maybe both. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do, or I didn't feel like I had anybody to relate to or any of that. And, my experiences as far as like, Akashic records and things like that doesn't come until way later, for me.
Yeah. Okay. So
But
see, I really bid it. Oh, I'm very fortunate to be in a position where at the time I was single, living by myself. I had all the time and space and freedom in the world to just full 2 feet in, not even 2 feet in. I just threw my whole body at it. I threw my whole being into it. And that's why I think it happened so fast for me, where I was just like looking at everything and feeling the polarities inside of me come into union. And it was understanding that at the root, at the foundational level of all of this that I'm seeing is this concept of polarity and masculine, feminine, and unity. And this is not in a relationship sense at all. The relationship for me was the catalyst to understanding what needed healing in me. And that was this divine feminine piece that I had locked away out of fear and protection and for valid reasons, as we all have very valid reasons, because we experience these traumas and then we do what we need to do. Right. But there comes a time when that no longer serves us. And it's definitely shortly after the traumatic experience, we're supposed to heal. So like you, I'm already in the business of coaching. I'm already in the passion of helping and serving and making an impact. And this just expanded it to a whole nother level, because now I'm seeing like, oh my God, we're missing it. So many people are just missing this purpose and this joy of life that we all can have and our true power. And I think what it brought me to was my overarching assignment on this earth, which is getting people to their purpose, helping them understand their true identity, and helping them to uncover and find their supernatural gifts, because we all have them, and using them is the design that we're meant for in order to move humanity forward, but B, it's so joyful. It's so fulfilling.
I do have a follow-up now that you mentioned that. And this is I hope a good question. I'm excited about it. As far as like experiencing those supernatural gifts, a lot of people don't even, they don't even, I don't know. They don't even maybe realize that they have supernatural gifts first and foremost. But secondly, as they start to discover this about themselves, how about easing into it or understanding it or playing with it or getting comfortable with those gifts?
Okay, this is great because I'm experiencing this right now with a lot of people that are starting to come to me in seeking to understand and develop their gifts, but it's scary. And so here's what I'm finding a lot with people is as they're tapping into it, or as things are coming through, or even just as they're seeking, they experience this much, and then it scares the shit out of them. And so they back off. So I don't know if the answer really so much is easing into or speed. I think it is a matter of will, keeping yourself protected, and having somebody to guide you. Now, I didn't have anybody to guide me, but I don't think I was supposed to. That's false. I had different smaller periodic guides, both divine beings and then human ones that helped me along the path. But I really do think it is a matter of having somebody help assist in that process, because there's a process of integration when these things are coming through that I think a lot of people miss. And that's the main missing ingredient. If you don't know how to integrate properly, it just, it sends you and your whole life into complete spiral. And then B, it just becomes an experience that you don't do anything with, and it just kind of skates by, and you don't ground it into your being. So, I mean, if we want to talk practical, I just know that one thing that's helped me tremendously is grounding frequently when these things are happening, and meditation and connection. We can't isolate ourselves. There's a time for kind of retreating and going into a little hibernation so you can receive what's being sent to you, but don't stay there, because we're made for connection. And so finding others like you it seems scary, but finding others like you who can be a sounding board, like you or like me, who've gone through it already, is crucial.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, community it's so important. I mean, for a number of reasons. Physically being, in the same space was even crazier than I remembered too, because coming from being isolated so much over the past couple of years, it was just like amazing to actually physically experience people and feel their energy and all of that. Like, wow.
Well, because there's a weird thing that happens when we come together. We feed off of each other's energy. And so I know I have one specific person in my life. She's I would consider her my main guide. And we're very ancestrally close. Every time we're together, we upgrade exponentially. So there's something it's reciprocal, and it's by design. It's like you're giving and you're receiving, and this process, this exchange that happens, it upgrades all people. And then you put that in a group setting where everyone's upgrading. Oh my God, we're all going from here to here quickly.
Yeah, because I mean, you can leverage other people's experiences and witness it, right? Like that's why I love to work in a group, and I'll work one-on-one too. But if I just work with somebody one-on-one, sometimes it's hard for me to be like, hey, you can do this. But if they can see somebody else do it, then they know they can do it.
Yes. And then the second part is feeling it, because if we understand the laws of the universe, which is all energy, then if we're in close proximity and I'm vibing high, it doesn't even matter if you want to or not, you're automatically going to experience that higher frequency hitting your little ethos that you have here. And however big or small, depending on your own receptivity, is how you will also ascend. And so even like for my intentions in the morning, I'm saying to myself, let my vibe be so high that anybody who comes in contact with me hits it, they hit that and they feel it and they go higher too.
I think that that's almost like a natural phenomenon in nature, is that whoever it is, everyone will see the certainty of that frame that you're carrying with you, right? And whether they know it or not, they probably aren't even conscious of it. They'll start keying off of you as if you're the
Yes.
leader, just because you have that frame, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I've noticed that with all the fear, and it's like, but when I walk in certain, and it's like, there's a nonchalant sort of confidence about it, like people can't help it, like
they attach to absolutely whoever's and I think this was said by Tony Robbins at one point. Whoever is the most certain in a conversation, whether they're right or wrong, they'll win the other person over. And that's why leaders are effective. And that's why it's important to use our intuition to see if that quote unquote leader is using their skills in that as influence or manipulation. Because there's a difference.
Yeah, there definitely is. Well, I think you have to be somewhat certain about something in order to present it passionately and be, persuasive and all of that, right? Like, well, I mean, I guess you don't have to be, but it helps.
Yeah,
I have to be.
Same here. I don't, you and I, on that hike too, and we just believe the same things and we have the same qualities as far as that. I don't see it any other way. I can't be another way. As a matter of fact, if I'm not a 10, I feel like a 2. Like I have to be, passion and belief is crucial. And actually, I want to swing it back and say, I truly believe that when people are experiencing these things, it comes down to that single factor of belief. For me, I don't know what it is. I have this, I guess you would call it faith, but it's unwavering. And when I believe in something and when I have faith in something, like I'm fucking all in and I will arms wide open and we're going.
Strong
and I don't even hesitate. When I know, I know. And when I know, I go.
Yeah, that's I think a definition, like a great example of intention. And like, that's it. There's no question. You don't have to think about it. You just, which is amazing.
And then here's the interesting part about that. So this concept of free will, right? This concept of choice. I actually don't believe that. I think that we have choices when we are not sure of our beliefs. For you and I, when we believe in something, there isn't a choice. There is only one option, and that's to go forth. People find themselves in predicaments with thinking that they have options or choices when they're not clear on what they believe in, or there's any hesitation or fear in some sort. I don't think we have free will at all. I think it's an illusion.
Yeah, I think that's pretty profound right there. I'm gonna have to process that. Could you say that first statement one more time? Because I think I know what you're saying, but I just want to be sure.
Yeah. No, it's like this, the concept of free will, I think, is an illusion, because, and the sticky part that people find themselves in is thinking that they have a choice when really the moment you think you have a choice is just because you're not clear on what you believe. But when you believe in something, when you actually believe in something, there's only one choice. There's only one option for you. And that's destiny.
I love that.
I do, however, this is something that bothers me. And people say, well, if it's meant to be, it will be. That's not true at all. I don't believe that. I think it does come down to action. And then action comes back to that concept of whether you see it as a choice or not. If I see something in front of me and I think to myself, I have a choice, well, then that gives me two directions. I either take it or I don't. That's not destiny. Destiny is not preordained. Destiny is it's a requirement of all of us. And I do believe we'll eventually get there. It's dependent upon how many lifetimes that's going to take on us in this moment. But when you believe in that destiny for yourself and you see it, you get pulled to it, realizing that I don't have a choice. This is my destiny. I must go. But you have to take that action. That's where the free will comes in, I think. So there's a dichotomy, I think, because the free will is like, here's your destiny. There's no choice. Are you going to do it or not?
Yeah.
Are you going to take the action on that lack of choice or not?
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot as a illustration. It's really, really cool. It's like, I don't know, like it might sound maybe cheesy or hokey, but the idea of like divine will or capital letter W will, higher will.
Yes.
Are you going to do it or not? Are you going to fulfill your thing? Or, I mean, you do have the choice not to, but is that really what you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah.
So,
and there's this, yeah,
I love that. Well, I think it's really cool that you were already sort of in this world when you kind of started having some discoveries about yourself and then just how much there is to yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that transition of going from just doing your job, helping people, but then having this this whole range now of tools that you've been able to access over the past little while?
yeah. Well, so let's give a time frame for that.
Okay.
It's been, let's see, I think all of this for me came full circle, like the completion process within the last 2 years. Go figure, COVID. Because I was always spiritual in some way, but I would classify myself more as religious before. So as all of these things, like I've told you snippets of, started becoming unlocked. It was like one at a time. It was like the vision started coming, but the visions first were prophetic in a way, like golden ages, golden giants rising up. And I would just see things like sound waves hitting the earth and things dying, and then higher frequencies staying up, and storms happening, that then there was something going on in the world. Those are the prophetic ones, but the ones that were more personalized experiences were things like, okay, I'm going to take it from the start. It started with this dove. I'm walking in my neighborhood. I see this thing fly up off the ground and hit into a garage door. I'm like, what the hell is, there's nobody around. It's very early. So I go over there and I see this bird like flailing around the ground. Its neck is broken, is gasping for air. And I'll never forget this moment. I'm calm. I like sit down next to it and I realize what's happening. And I just was like, no. So I look up on my phone super quick how to fix a bird with a broken neck. And the first thing I see is a picture of a bird wrapped in a bandage. So I'm like, okay, so there's hope. So I hang on to that word, hope. So I pick up this bird in my hands and he's alive. Like he's watching me, but he can't move. And my dog's with me. He's being so good. I pick up this bird in my hands. We walk 2 blocks, put the bird on the ground, put my dog in the car. I pick up the bird in my coat and I put him on the passenger seat. And he's like, kind of freaking out, looking at me, but he's still paralyzed. And so I'm driving to work, which is about a 20-minute drive. This bird stays there the whole time on his back. And I'm talking to the bird. I'm like, you're going to be okay. Just relax, just relax. And I go, Lord Jesus, just please communicate to this bird that I'm going to take care of him. He's just going to be fine, and tell him to relax. Please bring a peace over him. So the bird chills out. I get to work. I, I've got clients to go to, right? I'm going to bring this bird in. So I get this bird out, and somebody comes out of the gym to greet me, and they're like, what you got there? Because they could tell I was kind of distraught. And I thought this thing was dying in my hands. So all the guy says is, oh my gosh, it's a dove. And I go, oh, a dove, it's just, it hit it and blah, blah, blah. And just like that, this bird pops up, flies away like nothing happened.
Wow.
Freaked me out. I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, I feel like I just brought this bird back to life. And so then here we go down the rabbit hole. I'm looking up what's the meaning of a dove. And it's basically to bring hope and life and peace. And so I'm like, oh my God, that is it. That's my purpose, to bring life and hope. Well, the very next morning, I go to meditation and I receive this bizarre vision. I'm in the desert and I'm with Jesus is like my main guide. So I'm always with Jesus, and we're usually in the desert. Not sure why. But I open my mouth and these doves fly out in my vision. And I'm like, holy shit. What was that? So there's a second piece. Use your voice to bring hope and life and peace. Okay. We're going to hold on to that. The next morning, the next meditation, the vision becomes, I transform into the dove and I'm on this lion's back, and we're just kind of like maneuvering life. And I'm like, okay. So it just continues to develop, right? It's just stacking and stacking. Well, the next time I told you about the Golden Giants vision, where I see this globe and from the atmosphere, I see the world, dark, shadowy figures, small figures. Well, in the midst of those is these huge golden giants just rising up. And I was like, that is it. That is what we are experiencing right now. The golden giants, you, myself, many others who are waking up and going to change the course of humanity, are rising up during this time. Beautiful. It gives you purpose. Well, so now this next vision, I'm in outer space, floating around as a human being, and I get swooped by these dark black birds, and it's very like chaotic. So I'm like, what the hell? So I start flying with them in that direction. Well, here's me. I said, hold on. What are we running from? What are we flying from? So I turn around and I start flying the opposite direction as these birds. I turn into the white dove, and up in the distance, there's this huge golden figure with a hole in its chest. And I just beeline it straight for that hole. I blast through the other side, and I became like this white lioness with golden dove's wings. And this is like this was an experience that was like so bizarre for me, because I felt every bit of that. I felt flying. I felt empowered. Everything was being mantled on me. And this is where my true identity felt like it was being formed. And having this identity in a spiritual sense really, for me, marked everything then that was to come. From there, I connected with a lot of people who are clairvoyant, and there was like visions that they included with me. A lot of forest experiences where I went on this. I was told I must find a cave. So I'm like, I'm going and searching this cave. So I go on this forest walk, and it was bizarre. I never found the cave, but I found a well, like a Mary Magdalene well, with a random piece of fruit by it in a forest that was completely dead. I sit on this well, and I'm just like, it was raining. I spent like 2 hours looking for this cave. I'm like, what are you doing? What am I doing here? So I'm sitting on this well, this piece of fruit falls by my feet. I'm like, okay. And then I look up ahead and I see what I thought was the cave off the trail. So I go off the trail and I get completely caught in rose bush thorns. And as I'm caught, I look down at my feet and I see a skull of a deer. And so I picked the skull up. I'm like, okay, this is getting way too freaky. I felt death upon me, right? This is getting way too freaky. So I scramble out of the woods. All this is going to make sense in a moment. Meanwhile, my friend is getting a vision of me and Jesus and the intimate nature of me and Jesus and how there's like connectiveness there. I'm getting the Mary Magdalene feel. And so immediately after this, she had a vision where I was lying in a field of purple wildflowers with a blue gem on my throat. And that very next day, my throat felt blocked. And so I only know what to do to unblock a throat chakra is just to start making noise. So I started making noise and I started singing. And Owen, this is when my first real gift came through. Start making noise and I'm singing to this song that I'd never heard before, but all of a sudden I just burst out in this other language, which some may call tongues. I know it now to be a light language because it's definitely expanded and accelerated. And that just like complete goosebumps through my whole body. And I couldn't even stop it. It was more of like, I became the observer of what was being channeled through me. And it was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. And I was like, I don't even believe this is my voice right now. Like, I'm just going to let it flow. And so I just completely opened myself up to the experience and it came through. And so after that was the next gift that came through, which was the energetic one. I'm very, very physical. I'd done a lot of work on my heart chakra during this time because it just was screaming that it was the area of focus. And as I came through that process, I realized I had one last one to really complete and bring me online. And I experienced some traumatic sexual experiences when I was young. I completely forgot about them. Well, in meditation, one of these days, I feel this massive energy in my hands. And so I just got curious and I decided to play with it. And I bring this ball of energy like up in front of my body and it guided me. Again, I'm going to reiterate to your listeners, all of this stuff came through because I was completely open. I was completely listening to whatever intuitive direction I was being called into. And I just, okay, let's just figure this out. So this huge ball of energy is in my hands and it moves me down to my sacral area. And I literally felt a mass come out of my sacral area into my hands where I just went like this, scooped it up, and I threw it into the air. And at that moment, my whole system came online. What I call a cosmic orgasm, because your whole body just kind of like, tingles, and you just get this orgasmic whole body experience. It's bizarre. I hope everybody gets to experience that. By the way, it's amazing.
It's rapturous.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But then you come to find out, you learn that the orgasm by nature is a highly spiritual and connective experience. And as society, we've kind of demonized it and taken us away from the sacredness of that. But it connects us spiritually. So that was how I discovered Reiki. And then from there, it was like, again, back to belief. I experienced it. So of course I believe it. So I just kept getting this message, practice, practice, practice. So I'm out there speaking the language to myself out loud. Well, this client of mine is experiencing this very distraught notion. And I swear to God, something possessed me. My eyes were fluttering and I go, come here. So I start speaking this language over her. Immediately after that, she had an out-of-body experience where she saw us in that mode. And then her gifts just took off. Her clairvoyant gifts, she saw colors. She was hearing things, and seeing visions. So I realized that these are all activators. And so really my whole array of gifts came through one sequence at a time of just me keep taking the nibbles. But these one nibbles at a time was like every day. like one day it was this, and that's why I say it was the black hole, because it was like, holy shit, can I get some rest? I'm like, I'm just trying to rationalize the fact that I speak this new language, and then you're giving me Reiki, and then you're giving me like, intuitive things, and now I can feel things with my hands and my heart. It's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's also not crazy out there if you're listening. Like I think I think Sarah's main message is that you were open enough to go with your intuition and follow it. And it seems like you kind of relaxed into it and found a way to just allow it to be. Surrender maybe is a word. I don't know.
That was really strange that you used that, because when I had my first DMT experience was what really kind of opened that word up for me, because the word that I kept hearing in that experience was surrender, 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 always 3 times. And so I fully did. And I think that you described that very well, as I relaxed into it. And that's why it didn't feel like a freight train to me. It's interesting now that you bring that up. I think it feels like a freight train or a crash if you have resistance.
Yeah, that's really well put.
And you just said it best. I allowed it to be. And because I didn't really have any fear. I had nothing to fear, I guess. Because at the same time, I felt surrounded, and I also felt very safe in myself. But that took work too.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. That's awesome. That makes a lot of, and it's also that it goes back to the free will thing that you were kind of talking about too. It's like, all right, are you going to resist this, or are you going to click in, because you have a choice, but not really, but yeah, you kind of.
It's almost like now I want to go back to that phrase and say, you have options. Okay. It's like, you have options, but when you believe, you don't have a choice.
Mm. Yeah.
So I had an option to close that door. It wouldn't have been fun though. The universe is going to keep knocking on your door. It's like, how long is it going to take you to listen? You can avoid a lot of pain if you just answer the door.
Yeah. Some of us are hard-headed. It's okay. No,
But you know what though? That's all the way perfectly how it's supposed to be too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you only can go through that door freely when you've completed certain processes. It's like walking up a ladder. You can't just go to rung 10 if you haven't walked up 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't just conjure up a bunch of faith when you haven't actually had the experiences over time. And what you have built now is beyond faith even, right? It's like an awareness and a knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, it's like a wisdom. Yeah. But I also think to not to my own credit, to toot my own, but I think I was literally born for such a time as this. Literally.
Yeah.
Whatever happened, whatever I did in my previous lives too, kind of like it was just all leading to this. And now I'm focused on like, do as much work as you possibly can in this lifetime to make your next one as easy as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all about, and I still sometimes, it's funny too. I think I feel like I've gotten some insight to myself the past couple of days, and even into my like higher self, I guess, if you could, because I had some previous misconceptions about like this idea of a higher self. Very pious, very perfect, very like this weird representation of this like angel that would never do any, but it's like, dude, why would you come here and put yourself in this crazy experience not to, test the boundaries of it, to, see, to experience different pleasures and activities and sensations. Yes. and frames of consciousness? That's part of the fun. And it's funny how easy
Absolutely.
it is to get looped into that like pious, very rigid sort of idea of self, but we're here to play, I think.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Like life, I think it boils down to this. The purpose of life is 2 things: to grow and to have fun. to grow and to enjoy, basically. And that includes all the things you just said, pleasure and joy and adventure. And like, I I always joke around and I say, you're spiritual as fuck when everything's funny. When you just laugh at fucking everything.
Yeah.
Because you realize that everything really is just fun and joy, and even the pain is kind of silly at times, but you can really feel it. And if we didn't have these feelings and these experiences, then what the hell would be the point? I mean, I think people think this enlightenment, this state of highest consciousness is when you're just Zen Buddha sitting on the top of a mountain, like doing and thinking nothing. I don't think that that's our design. I think that there are people like that can help us, but I don't think that's all of our purpose. I really don't.
I think that's it's like, we are taught often to think about the worst case scenario, and maybe, we're doing a little bit of comedy maybe helps with this, but worst case scenario, hilarious story. Can you imagine like God coming up to the water cooler and be like, well, I just ruined a whole universe, just what if you
he really
sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead.
No, I forgot, I've lost my train of thought. I think we have a little bit of a lag, so my
lag, yeah. But it's like he does have this, God, the universe does have a sense of humor. It toys with us all the time. And it's like, when I think the ultimate state of consciousness is the recognition of the beautiful orchestration and the fact that God has our best interest in mind always, even through the pain, like even through the darkness, especially through those times, because it's just, if we can understand that everything sounds so cliche, but happening for us and not to us, we really get to understand God.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like one of my mantras is everything is happening exactly as it should, and even in those hard days, I had a couple of those this week where I just emotionally had a lot of resistance and I felt stuck, and and then I start feeling I feel guilty on top of that, because like other people are having real problems and I am in having a day of the doldrums, and where do I get off, so it just becomes this like spiral of ridiculousness. But even through that, you've got to have that, because I also had a breakthrough in my writing process, because it made me go back and work back and like deconstruct, like, what am I doing wrong? And ultimately something just clicked, and it's a simple tweak. It's not even a big deal, but it's like game changer,
That's interesting how you bring that up. I always find like when we're looking for a breakthrough, we never find one. And catharsis is real. It's like some of the best work can come through because of painful moments or stuck moments. And those epiphanies are just like, they seem to hit you out of nowhere. And you're just like, oh, brilliant. It just changed the whole game. And it's not from you. It's like this is the humor, coming back to the humor. Universe is like, you're so funny. You think you have like all of this. You think it's all you. You think you're the creator. I'm creating through you, you silly motherfucker.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, absolutely.
And then again, coming back to like that ultimate state of consciousness, that's why I think it really is humor, because when you realize, like, when you can really rest in the peace of knowing that it is not you, and that it is just the level of your, I guess, epiphanies, we'll call them, the level to which those epiphanies are able to come through is directly related to the level of which you're able to rest into the flow and to allow, then those work in tandem. But so often we as humans are like, okay, oh, thank you, I got the wheel now, I'm doing this. And you start to drive the boat again, and then it's like another thing happens, and you're like, damn it, I forgot I'm not in control.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I love, that's an excellent analogy. Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out and sharing. I'm honored to know you and to get to know you even better. And I love the work that you're doing. I'm so excited. Tell us just a little bit about where people can find you and what your offerings are out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my website is sparkflc.com. And you can find ways to book with me on there, but more importantly, I'm on social media a lot. So I'm constantly putting valuable content out on there. So Sarah_Spark Fitness is my Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm Sarah Spark Malone. What I do is fitness based. I have a couple coaches that work under me. And so they will do a lot with the fitness side. But what I do is spiritual mentorship. So I'll do virtual, in-person Reiki. I'll do light language channeling sessions. I do courses as well. I have a retreat coming up in June. And then I also do a mastermind following that, or the option for one-on-one mentorship. And this can be spiritual, it could be mental, it could be emotional. Really, it's whatever is needed for you at the time. We can go through reading chakra blocks. I also do guided meditations. I'm working on getting my guided meditations on a tape or a course that they can buy digitally. But right now I do them live on Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Would love to have anybody and everybody join in on those. They are really freaking powerful. They are directly downloaded to me. So they're mostly imagery, but sometimes they're more experiential, so like physical. So really helps with the meditative process and helping with upgrades and downloads.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to start joining that. Our book club's wrapping up in a couple weeks, so I'm going to be hopping on those meditations. Yeah, and
awesome. Laura was on last week. We did some cord cutting.
Awesome. Yeah, I love her. She's amazing.
She's awesome.
So much fun. Wow, that is awesome. Okay, well, I will make sure all of that. I've got your link tree even up too, so I'll make sure there's plenty of resources in the show notes. Everybody go and check out Sarah's stuff. I can absolutely vouch. Like my socks were blown off as soon as we started talking. I was like, oh, we're in the presence of awesomeness here. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, you know what? Oh, and one last thing I forgot to mention. I do have a Patreon channel where a lot of these things, do have my own podcast too. So there's bonus episodes on there, and then there's a lot of channeling on there as well as one-on-one interaction with me too. So that's in my link tree too. You can link it all in the show notes, but
okay. Awesome. Yeah, do everybody connect. I'm so excited. I feel like we just keep meeting more and more soul fam,
yes.
It just keeps getting better and better. So I really, like I said, I'm honored. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with us. And I hope to, have you on again. Come on and hang out on a panel with us sometime.
Oh, I'd love that. Hell yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and just to know you. That was one bonus thing that came out of that retreat. This connection was the main one for me. So I'm happy to know you.
Likewise.
And we'll be having you on my show next.
Oh, I can't wait. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for checking out this episode. Send us your story. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to share. Be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast and check back often for more great content. BlueCollarMystics.com.